What the hell are these? They're not really over 100 years old, are they? Blimey. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Wolfie's Wheels. Today we're at the 80th members meeting at Goodwood, and yesterday we had some epic racing, as you can see in the little clip here. But today, we're not actually going to put any racing in the film. It's all going to be about what's going on around the paddocks. And I'm very lucky to be joined by the Professor, as he's known. He's very camera shy, so he's not actually going to appear on the camera, but he is extremely knowledgeable about all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to do the filming and he's going to do the talking. And I hope you enjoy the film. If you do enjoy the film, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you hit the bell icon, you will be notified of new videos as and when they appear. Anyway, enjoy the film.
Right, Edwardian cars. Early parts of the automotive history, cars ranging from 1905 to 1923. So the youngest one is 100 years old this year. The idea of Edwardian cars at the time was if you wanted to go faster, you put a bigger engine in it. It was only towards the latter part of the period where they realised that perhaps a smaller engine, more efficient engine with better handling, better chassis and better brakes was the way to go faster. So you will see cars ranging here with engine sizes up to about 25 litres. Brakes at the time were very rudimentary, and most cars you'll find will only have rear brakes, nothing on the front. So for a driver, I should imagine it's quite challenging. From a spectator's point of view, when you see them racing and on the road, it's pretty exhilarating. So we'll see what we can find. Right, Alfa Romeo RTLF, built in 1923. One of the early Grand Prix and sports car Alfa Romeos of the period. Two-seater, as most of the racing cars were of the period. This one, 100 years old, quite modern looking compared to some of the cars we might see today. Four-wheel brakes, quite high chassis, drivetrain going under the seats, two spare wheels on the back for the endurance racing at the time, fuel tank behind the driver. Most of the races at the period this would have competed in would have required a riding mechanic, so the two-seat option had to be abided by, and it had to have some sort of comfort for the actual driver himself. A very interesting car, a very nice car, and it's good to see a car like this being used properly. 1914 Sunbeam, built for the TT races in the Isle of Man. 3 were entered as a team and they were very successful. All 3 still currently survive, and this one of the period, two-seater for the riding mechanic, spare wheels at the back. The roads they raced on weren't particularly good, so punctures and damaged wheels were a common occurrence. Fuel tank behind the driver. Sometimes these cars had a hand-operated fuel pump which the mechanic would have to regularly pump to supply fuel to the engine. 3 litre, very similar in concept to the Peugeots of the time. Front wheel brakes non-existent, so rear wheel brakes only. Driver has to allow for such things, that the stopping power is nothing like your modern day car, and the handbrake is probably as useful stopping implement as your foot brake is. Mesh screen on the front, keep the flies out. Other than that, you're totally exposed to everything. Right, Sunbeam. This case, it's a Indian car built for Indianapolis with a 5 litre engine. Same concept, it's two-seater, but a very more aerodynamic style body. The long pointed tail and a straight through exhaust pipe, which is very similar to your size to your drain pipes on your house at home. Again, no front wheel brakes, so rear wheel brakes only, but at Indianapolis, braking wasn't the biggest issue in the race, with it being on a banked oval. Again, in this case, the riding mechanic's seat is set slightly further back than the driver's seat to give them both a little bit more room and to stop the driver bashing the riding mechanic in the face when he's twirling the wheel. 1903 Mercedes, 9-litre engine, 4 cylinders. Cylinders are cast in pairs. Lot of piping for oiling with the drip feeds mounted on the dashboard. Very high seating position, very limited backrest for the driver and none at all for the passenger. At the back is effectively a flat slab which would have carried the spare wheels at the time. Like a lot of the cars of the era, they are chain driven. So you had 2 massive chains from the gearbox on a shaft to the outside of the car to the rear wheels, which those flailing around just below your elbow is a bit nerve-wracking for the uninitiated. No modern starting mechanisms on these. Hand crank on the front. Beware, if it does decide to kick back when you're hand cranking it, you can break an arm. The people that look after these things know how to take care and know how to operate them correctly. These type of cars are used fairly competitively in classic and historic events throughout the year and quite often on the road. London to Brighton Run is a favourite one of most people in November. Right, Darracq 200. 200 because that was the horsepower it had. Built in 1905, 25-litre V8 engine, effectively 2 V4s with each pair of cylinders cast as one. Built for trying to beat the land speed record. Achieved something like 121 mile an hour. Various times it was used in America and Brooklands, and also raced on the sands at various places across the UK. The car was dismantled sometime during its career with the front half and rear half of the chassis cut off, just leaving the chassis where the engine was. It was rebuilt with the new parts of the chassis, and the new back axle and gearbox was built in the 90s from original drawings located in a book, and it is currently used in vintage racing and quite often used regularly on the road. Moors, French-based company, cars built and used throughout the Edwardian period, some more touring than racing. This particular car has a Curtis 8-litre aero engine. A lot of the engines of the time have long since disappeared, and people have managed to acquire brand new, unused Curtis engines from America, installed them in the chassis to allow them to use them in competitive events and on the road today. It would have been a similar thing done in period where people would have acquired larger engines for certain chassis to increase the performance of their car. So it's not something brand new, could be a period modification, but it does make for interesting cars and interesting racing.
Well, I hope you found that as interesting and as entertaining as I did. Sincere thanks to the professor. I mean, these Edwardian drivers, I mean, they're the real heroes. They're so, I don't know, they must have a completely different mindset to most people. There's massive chains thrashing around inches from your legs, and you're sat right high and exposed. And the way they drive this around the track, as you can probably see from the little bit of clip I'm putting in about here. They don't hang about. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the film. As I say, so feel free to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in a future edition of A Wolfie's Wheels. Bye.